Hello everyone, this is Trent Frazier, the Education and Social Sciences Librarian here at St. Thomas. And in this video I'm going to show you a bit about how to do education research using our libraries. My contact information and ways to get a hold of me will be shown at the very end. So let's get right into it. I want to do a few things in this video. One is just to help you get into research and start looking at a topic that you want so you can follow along with thinking about the paper that you have to write. And then we'll use some basic and get into some more advanced search techniques in the places that we look. And then we're also going to use I'm going to show you a tool called RefWorks, which is really nice to keep track of all the resources that you find. So I will say that this is really going to be front loaded. We need to know a bunch of different terminology and kind of the ways things are laid out within the library in academic literature. And then kind of the second half we're going to be really getting into doing some sample searches and actually using all of these things that we've looked at beforehand. So, first of all, we're starting out with journals. These are probably the sources that you're going to use most often. Essentially, a journal is sort of like a magazine, except it's got a very specific focus, and obviously it's a lot more academic. You're not going to see these in the grocery store, checkout aisle, because they have a very specific audience, usually written by people in the field for people within the field. So there are hundreds of different journals within the field of education, maybe even thousands. So we're going to be looking through some of those today. Kind of on the right is a sample page of the start of a journal article. So you can see it's not like any flashy pictures or anything you see in some of your magazines. If there's any images, it's going to be usually charts or graphs. So very scientific. And quite a few of them follow this same format. So here's a very simplified version of a journal article. And I say this format being that they have these main sections. So first, you've got your title, your author, and then we've got the abstract. It's usually a one-paragraph summary of what this article is all about, which can be really helpful because if an article is 20 pages long, if you just read the abstract, you might find that, oh, this one's not going to be useful for me. So you saved a lot of time by not reading those 20 pages of something that's not really on your topic. And then there's an introduction, kind of where they talk about why this is an issue, what they're researching, and then they get into the methods where they talk about how did they go about researching their question that they're trying to find an answer to. So that's where they get really specific into, I interviewed this many people, here's how we did it, I gave a survey out to so many students. So that's where they get into how they went about it. The results are what they found, and often that's where you'll see charts and graphs. And then the discussion kind of brings it back to the real world and says, okay, we did our experiment or we collected our data, somehow we analyze it. Here's what it really means in the real world. Here's how you can apply it to your work. And then they have the references that they cited. So that's kind of a typical format. So we always have that abstract, then you've got your introduction, which often has a literature review, which looks at the other papers, journal articles that were written on this topic before. So it kind of gives you a lay of the land of kind of where you're at right now. Then it looks at, okay, here's what I did specifically, here's what I found, here's what it means. And where we find these articles are going to be in what we call databases. So you've probably heard of databases. Library databases are generally ones that are just full of journal articles. So what they have in common is that they all have journal articles, and they all have this search bar where you can type in your search terms to pull up the relevant articles. What makes them different, we have over 100 different databases that we subscribe to, is which journals that you're actually searching. So we have one called Business Source Complete, which has a bunch of business journals. So we have a bunch of different topics, psychology as well. The one you want, obviously, is going to be the one full of education journals. And the best one for that is called ERIC. It stands for Education Resources Information Center. So it is really big and full of just a bunch of journal articles. So that's going to be your best place to search. We also have something called ClickSearch. So CLIC stands for Cooperating Libraries in Consortium. It's basically the group of college libraries that we share some things together, we purchase some things together because it's cheaper to buy as a group, and so we bought this basically search engine together. So we call it ClickSearch. And essentially what that does is it tries to pull together everything we've got. So trying to be kind of the Google of the library. So it pulls together all of those databases. So you will, when you're searching it, get some business journal items popping up, but it also searches all the books that we have, and then videos as well. So that can be useful, but to really get targeted into education, we want to go with ERIC, but we'll take a look at both. And so jumping back into our journal articles, there are a few different types, and they all depend on how close they are to getting that raw data that's collected. I know this sounds a little confusing, but basically I've classified it into 3 different types. So there are studies. These are ones where the author, the researchers, went and they collected raw data somehow. So they got so they did interviews where they collected the things people say directly, or they did an observation where they saw something directly, or they got survey results, so they collected it directly. So that's called primary research. Primary because they are right next to that raw data. In secondary research, we have something called reviews. You'll see them called systematic reviews or meta-analysis. These are really great. What they do is instead of collecting their own raw data, is they kind of look through and they synthesize a bunch of studies, a bunch of that primary research on a single topic. So I know it's really small on the screen there, but this one is a systematic review of 2 decades of research on synchronous online learning. So what they did is they looked for as many articles they could between those time frames on synchronous online learning, and they decided which articles fit all their specific criteria because they had more. And then they did a review and found what are the big topics that popped out in all of this research. So if you can find a systematic review on your topic, it gives you a ton of information. But remember that secondary research, which is one level away, because they don't collect the raw data. The articles that they're reading are the people that did collect that raw data. And then you'll get to even further an essay or a literature review, which is what you're going to be writing, which is kind of where you take these primary and secondary articles. You may find other literature reviews and you write up and kind of discuss a topic. So this is kind of like your standard paper that you write where you use the research of others to talk about a topic. So it's definitely not as systematic because you can get to pick and choose. It's not as systematic as one of those systematic reviews because you can kind of choose the articles that you want. You're not looking for everything on the topic. But yeah, so these are the different types of articles that you'll come across, and each one can be very useful. Okay. And like I said, we're front loading this with a ton of information getting thrown at you, but we'll kind of see all of this play out when we do some searches in a little bit here. Your professor might have a requirement that your articles need to be peer reviewed. This is something that different journals do. So all the articles in a certain journal would be peer reviewed. Basically, this means they do one more step in the process, which is this one with the panel of a few experts in the field that read this article. So normally you would write it up. So you do your research, you would write it up as an article, send it into the journal editor. They decide if it's good enough to be in their journal. And if it is, then they publish it. If not, then you get a rejection letter. So in the peer review process, they send it out after the editor decides, like, yeah, this is probably going to work for our journal. It fits our scope, but I want it to be looked over by other people in the field. So those people look it over and they give comments, and ultimately they decide, yes, this is great, publish it now, which hardly ever happens. Usually they have what's called a revise and resubmit, where they give you a bunch of things to fix and edit, and then you can turn it back in, and then they will publish it. Or they can say, actually, this is terrible, sorry. So basically it's one more step in just making sure that it's a quality journal article, because they're getting more feedback on it. And hopefully these other people can help clean it up and make it more rich and full. Make sure you're not missing anything. They'll question anything that seems a little off in your methods. So they'll make sure you explain all of that. Anyway, it's kind of a quality control thing. And what's great is that there's usually a checkbox in our databases where if you need peer reviewed, you can just check the box and it'll take away all the journals that are not peer reviewed. Okay. All right, and then I want to show RefWorks, which will be very useful at getting these resources into essentially a folder. It kind of hangs onto your resources. It grabs the title, grabs all that citation information so you can remember what articles that you've looked at. And then what's great is that it actually makes an APA reference list for you. So the thing that goes at the end of your paper, it will do that for you. So I'm going to show you real quick how to set up an account. You don't have to use this. You can use this, but what I'm going to show is what my account looks like. So I'm starting at the library's homepage, which is stthomas.edu/libraries. And then on the right side, I'm going to scroll down, and there's this quick links section. And at the bottom, we have RefWorks. So I'll click on that. There is an older version of RefWorks. We want to use this newer one, which has the blue logo, and you can just click on the name. And you won't have a login information, but I'm going to just show you what my account looks like. So I will sign in. And here it is. Each row here is a different resource. So if I click on this one, it says it's a journal article. It grabs the name, the author, that abstract, which, like I said, is that one paragraph summary of what the article's about, all this information about it. So I'm going to close that. So each one of these is going to be a different resource, and the great thing about it is, well, one, I can remember the articles that I've looked at before, and also if I select some, I can choose to create a bibliography, and I have selected APA 7th, and it makes a reference list for me. So all I have to do is copy this and then paste it into my writing app, so Microsoft Word. One thing to be sure, the first time you set this up, it will not be an APA 7th. I don't know what it does by default. I think it goes alphabetically, so probably AMA. But this is the exact one that you want. There are multiple APA 7th. You can search in here, APA 7. It says there's 8 results. You want this exact one, which says sentence casing, and the DOI has the https://doi.org. This is the most accurate and true to APA 7th. You will always have to double check these. There are things wrong likely with every one of them, but this gets you pretty close to what the actual APA citation is. I see on this second one, this one doesn't even have an author, so I don't know what happened there. It might have taken that one incorrectly, so there's a lot wrong with this one. I don't know what this 2 periods is all about. These other ones look decent. One thing is you never want it to say St. Thomas in the URL. So this one is really messed up, and so like all of this is junk, and we don't want it to say dx.doi. I will talk a little bit more about APA citation here. It looks like this last one though is looking pretty good. So we've got sentence casing where just the first word is capitalized. Got our journal, volume, issue, page numbers, and the DOI is in the correct format. That's what it should look like here. This one has the dx.doi, and it doesn't have the S in HTTPS. And it has all this extra junk. So you always have to verify that later on. Let me actually show you how you can do that. So I'm going to go back to the library's homepage, which if you're ever on the library site and you see this little menu bar here, you can just click where it says libraries and it will go to the homepage. So we have research and course guides. I'm going to click on that. And we've got a guide specifically about citing an APA. So we've got a list of all of our guides. We want to go into the citing sources section, and here's APA 7th edition. If I click on that, I can learn all about APA if you've got any questions. But what we're looking at when we make this final list for our page, this is called the reference list. So I'm going to look at reference list citations. So here's kind of what that final page should look like. Get tons of description and information about that, but there's a bunch of examples here. If you're using journal articles, there are 2 here that you would use. So over here we give an example. So you have journal articles with a DOI and without a DOI. So a DOI is this number and letter string that always starts with a 10 dot something. And that identifies each article. So each article has a specific DOI. So if your article has one, it should be brought into RefWorks. So this one doesn't seem to have one, but these two do. Then you just follow the correct format here. So I see this one, and we want the DOI to look exactly like this. https://doi.org/ and then that number letter string. So this one, like I said, is perfect. This one doesn't have the S, the DX, we don't need that or any of this, so we would just take out all of that. So this is the best place where you can verify what those should look like. And the first one looks exactly the same, except that you don't have a DOI, so you just stop after the page numbers. Okay, so that's RefWorks, and that's where you can go to learn more about APA. So if you like to use this, again, it's not perfect, but gets most of the way there. Then you can sign up for a RefWorks account. So to do that, I'm going to log out and show you the first steps. So to do this, you would go down to Create Account. This gray thing at the bottom. Do not hit this blue bar. It seems like that would make sense, but it does not. So you hit Create Account. You have to use your @stthomas.edu email address. So you just put in your email, hit check, it will verify that you do not have an account yet, and then you create a password. And this password does not have to match anything, does not have to be your same St. Thomas password. I can't do this because I've already got an account. But then you'll have to verify by going to your email address and clicking the confirm, yes, this is my actual email, to set up your account. And then you'll be in, and it will just be a completely blank one in here. And so once we find articles, we'll look at how to add different things in here. So how to add articles in there. One thing, just be sure to check your spam folder for that confirmation account from RefWorks. So that is what RefWorks does. It is pretty cool. It will save you a lot of time. Alright, so we're about to get into searching and looking at our examples, and we can finally stop looking at this PowerPoint. So there's a couple places you want to search. We've got ClickSearch, Eric. You can try using Google Scholar to give you some ideas of different articles to find. This can lead you to other articles, and you can search for them within our system. We also have another great education database called Education Full Text, and we kind of have an interdisciplinary general one that's just really big, has a lot of stuff in it, called Academic Search Premier. So those are some other options. I'll actually show you how to search a couple of these at the same time. So when we're doing some searching, we just want to keep it simple. So don't, if you have a question you're trying to answer, don't type in the full question. You know, just like using Google, you just kind of use those keywords. You don't need to put the whole thing in there with a question mark. Just think about what are kind of the key parts. So you should only type in a few words. And then they use Boolean operators, so and, or not. So what I like to use often is the or for when you're describing something that could be described in other ways. Like, for example, you could search ADHD, or the journal article might spell it all the way out. So you got to be thinking, like, how are they going to talk about it? You know, if you're looking for interventions, you might also look for interventions or strategies or best practices, or so think of other terms that could be used. So that's kind of the basics of search. Again, we'll see more in examples. And one thing we'll run across is interlibrary loan. We will find some articles where we get information about it, but we don't actually have the full article. You can't read the whole thing. And that's kind of a bummer. But the great thing is we have this tool called Interlibrary Loan where we can get you just about anything. So if we don't have a journal article, Interlibrary Loan is a service where we can get articles from a different school's library. So like for example, the University of Minnesota obviously has a much bigger library system than we do. So if we don't have a journal article, maybe they do, and we can get it from them. So we're borrowing between libraries. So even if we don't have something, we can probably get it for you. So just know that. Advanced search tips, you can look through these. Pause the video here. I'm not really going to go through a ton of these. Talked about our APA citation guide, and I'll show this again at the end, which is my contact information. Alright, part 2 begins now. Let's start searching, and I'm going to go back to the library's homepage. So I'm going to click libraries. I'm going to start from here. So we're going to look at ClickSearch. Which said was kind of that database that searches everything we got, and then we'll look more specifically and probably have better luck in the database called ERIC. And we'll use RefWorks along the way as well. Okay, so there are different disciplines that we'll be using this video, but one of them is in student affairs, and I've worked with some students to help them with searches, and one thing sample topic I've seen is looking for intersectionality with college students. So I'm going to look at, just use those as my keywords. And just see what articles that we can find about this. Okay, so remember I said that this is ClickSearch and it finds everything we've got. So we've got an article in this one, and then a book. We've got multiple books that we're finding. We've got dissertations. So remember, this tries to find everything we have and pull it together all at once. Let me try this again. It looks like this whole left side didn't load. There should be a bunch of options there. There it goes. So one of the issues with looking at something that searches for everything is that we get a ton of results. 17,000. That might be way too many for me to look through each one. How do I know which ones of these are the good ones? Maybe they're on page 500. I don't know. This can be just a little bit too much. It's kind of opening up the fire hydrant, and you're just getting blasted with all these different resources. So some of these look great and useful. But I don't know, at a certain point there's things that you don't want to use or won't be able to use necessarily. Conference proceedings, that doesn't sound great. This one, key concepts in social justice education, that sounds like we're getting a little bit further away from the topic here. So on the left side there's ways to narrow things down. Like I said, if you just want those peer-reviewed articles, if your assignment requires that, you could just check that box, hit apply filters. Now, since I did that one, I should probably just end up with articles, like I said. I can always get rid of that filter. But we have tons of resource types, so I can show more here, and I could just say articles, but peer reviewed, and I will select those. And then you can also change the date. So I only want newer stuff, let's say from 2010 to the present. So the last 10 years, your professor may be giving you a requirement of what dates are possible. And then, okay, I've got it down to 5,000 results, but that's still quite a few. So let's say I grab this second one. I like it. So I click on it. And now I want to send the information to RefWorks. What's great about ClickSearch is that there's a nice RefWorks button right here. I can just click on that. And it says, are you using the new version that's blue or this old kind of red version? And yes, I'm using this new version. Okay. And then you can use folders in RefWorks. You can set up folders over here. By adding them, you can insert different parts of your paper or project, different articles in different folders if you want. But in this case, I'm not going to put it in any folder. I'm just going to import it. And here it is. So it pulls in that information. So now I would be able to use this one to create my bibliography. Hey, and that one looks pretty good. So RefWorks just pulls in that information about the article. Now what I want to do is actually read this one. And it says we have full text availability, we have online access, and it's in this database. Project Muse. If you're off campus, it will require you to log in. And okay. So I've got the full text right here. Here's the abstract. They put it in this little box here. So I could read it that way, or what I prefer is the PDF. So if you download, you get the version like it would actually appear in a print journal, and I just find these easier to read. And you could just download and save this PDF somewhere else. So I'm just going to save that. What is this one called? I usually do the author's last name, so Duran Jones. I will save that. Okay. So I can save that in a folder, come back later. The other thing I can do, which is kind of cool, is click on this article in RefWorks, and I can actually attach that file there. So I can actually save it up here. And there's a couple ways to do that. One is I could click the pencil to edit what's in here, and I could add an attachment, and that was Duran Jones, and it's going to start to upload that right here. I'm going to hit save, and it's just going to continue to upload that. So that might take a little bit. The other way to do it is if I hit download. Sure, I'll save it there. When you're in Chrome, it's kind of nice where you get this little downloads bar here. You can actually just drag this right onto here, and it would do the exact same thing. So eventually this will load in there. When I click on it, I would be able to actually view the full thing right here. So it says read, and so I could read it here. So I would just have everything, including the full copy of the article, in my RefWorks. You can choose to do that or not. You could save them in a different folder, but that is a separate step where you actually have to download it and then put it back up there. Okay, so I could read this article. This one says it's from 2019. It's a new one. So I could keep looking for other articles in there. In Click Search, one kind of advanced tip if you're struggling to find resources is that if you've got a newer article that's right on your topic, look around and see if their references have a good article as well. So, intersectional interpretations, awesome. So I can hit copy. And then I can actually go search for this. Remember, Click Search tries to search everything we've got. So I'm actually just going to put this name of it right in here. And it will search to see if we have it. And it says, yep, we have online access. So there we go. Looks like there's 2 records here, but I could send this one to RefWorks, and we have this one from 1, 2, 3 different databases. So you could continue using this in Click Search. I do like to narrow things down here, but at a certain point we'll get to some things that are not really on our topic, and like I said, there's going to be some things that are maybe from different databases. So like, where was that one? Whoops. So I'm on number 19 here. We're talking about health. Gender, smoking, tobacco reduction. What does that have to do with my topic? Not a whole lot. So you get more kind of results that are off in here. So that's where I like to go to our home page and instead look at the database called ERIC. So instead of using Click Search, I'm going to go into our databases. Since I know which one I want, it starts with the letter E. I'm going to scroll down. Here's all the ones we have with E, and I'm going to click on ERIC. And this looks like a more traditional database where we've got search boxes, and we just know that we're going to be searching and it's going to pull up articles from the field of education. Now, one thing I have started to always do when I'm looking in ERIC is basically that's our best database for education. Our second best education database is called Education Full Text. And then what's nice is that it's also made by this company, or we also have our subscription through this company, EBSCO. And what's cool is you can actually choose to search multiple EBSCO databases at once. So I'm going to choose. I see ERIC is checked. I'm also going to check Education Full Text, so I'll actually be searching both at the same time. So I'm going to hit OK. It says I'm searching ERIC and Education Full Text. So now I should get more results, but remember both of these are both education, so we're not going to see those necessarily health articles like we were getting in the other one. So when I help students, I also see maybe they want to search for students with ASD. And now here's where our Boolean options come in, our ORs. What's great is that ERIC gives you a bunch of options. So I like this one, autism spectrum disorder, which what ASD stands for. Or if the article just says autism, we're still talking about the same thing. And I'm looking for interventions or strategies or best practices. So I like to use these ORs. It's just going to make sure it finds at least one of these. So maybe it finds just autism strategies. And I want to look at interventions that are video based. So I'm just going to use video. So I'm searching both of these, and I'm going to hit the search button. Alright, so I'm starting out with 810. That is much less than the 17,000 I started with, and then the 5,000 that we narrowed to. Let's see, I also want to narrow to peer-reviewed journals, which your professor might have you do. And that will cut out some results. Oh, quite a few of those are peer-reviewed. And let's say we don't want anything back to 95. I want to go 2010. Alright, so we're shrinking this number smaller and smaller. There's no exact number that you want to get to. But usually what I like to do is to get it down to around 100, because then you've got a bunch of options, but then you could actually look through and actually kind of look through 100 results. So 600, I'm probably not going to take the time to actually do that. So I could narrow this down further by saying, oh, I just want newer articles, or I could add more search terms. So I could say I'm actually maybe not just video, but I want it to be focused on iPads. Okay, so that gets it way down there to 35. So I could look through this and see what I like. Let's see, communication. All right. So I get a lot from the title. At a certain point, you're going to have to decide, do I want this article or not? So you'd have to decide, is this on my topic? You can use the title. We can look at some of these subject tags that it's got. And what's great is that if you put your mouse on the magnifying glass and over the sheet of paper, you get this pop-up box, which has a bunch of basic information. And if you scroll down, you get that abstract. So it says, this study. So remember when we looked at primary, secondary, and that tertiary research? This one is a study. So it is primary research. So they analyze a cohort of 6 students from study of 45. They looked at peer mediation and a speech generating device. Here's their methods, what they use there. So they kind of talk through it there. So this could help me decide, is this one article that I want? Let's say it is. I can click on the name. And so I want to send this then to RefWorks. To do that, once you click on the title of an article, you can hit export because we want to send the information about this one. And I want to direct export to RefWorks. Yep, that's where we want it to go. So click on that. And it's going to say, are you using the new or the old version? I'm going to check this box so it stops asking me every time. Looks like my computer's going a little slow here, but I clicked yes, and it should send it in. Sometimes when you go into RefWorks for multiple databases, it makes you sign in again, so that's why I'm seeing that. Again, I'm not putting it into a folder. Okay, so it sent that one in. Okay. Now if I want to get this one, it says we have the, so part 2 is actually getting the full article. And this one says we have the PDF full text. Perfect. So we've got that nice PDF. So here it is. If I want to put that or save that document, I can call it whatever I want. Working Goldstein. Cool. And then it was this one. So I'll click on it. I'm just going to drag this right on top here and I'll start that upload. Cool, so then I could read through this one. I could look through their references as well. And one thing you might see is that you'll find the same authors popping up the same time quite a bit. I mean, we see this H. Goldstein pop up a lot. See a couple of the Kasari, a few Kent Walsh. I'm guessing the Goldstein pops up a lot because, hey, that's one of the authors. But those are people that just do research on this topic a lot, then if their names keep popping up. Okay. So, a lot of your time I would be spending here in ERIC and Education Full Text. I would be changing up your search terms. You never get it right the first time. And then kind of play around with some of these ways to narrow it down. What you'll see is we have the full text of this one and this one and this one and this one. But on some of these we have this gray Get It button. That means we don't have it here in ERIC in Education Full Text. So if you hit Get It, one of two things could happen. Well, either we have it in a different database, or we just don't have it, and we'll have to do interlibrary loan. So I'm going to click Get It, and remember, Click Search searches everything we got. So it's going to check there and see, do we have this article somewhere else? And this one says, yeah, we actually do. It's over here in JSTOR. Let's see. And JSTOR links sometimes don't go directly to the article, but this one is using video self-modeling. Is that one? Here it is. So it's actually down here. So I could actually look at the full article there. Normally it will lead you right to the exact article. JSTOR ones sometimes just go to the journal, not the exact article. I'm going to keep looking through these though and see if we can find one and show you what it looks like when it doesn't work out. Okay, here we go. So it says we do not have access to this article. So the only way we can get it is to request via interlibrary loan. So I'm going to go through what that looks like. So first of all, you need to log into our interlibrary loan page with your St. Thomas login. The first time you do that, you'll have to fill out some basic information about who you are, which program you're in, stuff like that. And then, when you click on this request via interlibrary loan, it will pull in the information from that article. And you just have to make sure the things with the stars are filled in, and then hit Submit Request. I'm not going to do that because this is actually going to make more work for someone else. I am wondering why it didn't pull in the author, even though we see it's right here. So you could fill in that information as well. But essentially what will happen is once you do that, you have 3 boxes, and this is the main page of interlibrary loan. You've got 3 boxes. It'll pop up in this middle box as an outstanding request. Basically, that puts the call out to to different colleges and says, hey, do you have this? And if they do, it will pop up in this top box. And you'll get an email saying your article came in. And here's what it looks like. They will just send you a PDF of the article so that you could read it. You could also download it and save that into your RefWorks or wherever you want to put that. So, don't be afraid of running into anything where it says we don't have it, because we can always get it for you. So that's kind of the basics of doing research. Let's see, so we're in ERIC Education Full Text. I don't believe there's anything else that we talked about here that we didn't cover. Definitely look at RefWorks, ERIC. You can try Google Scholar out on your own. We went over Library Loan, and then you can try out some of these advanced search tips. If you are unable to get any relevant articles or you're struggling to find any good ones, I am definitely available here for one-on-one appointments. You can email me with specific questions, or if you follow that link at the bottom, that goes to my appointment calendar. And let me actually click that. And basically you'll have a calendar of when I'm available. So let's say I want to meet on this day. Here's the times that are open in my schedule. Just hit continue, fill out your name, information, what class is this for, hit confirm, and it'll set up a meeting with me, and then we'll just talk over Zoom, and we can share screens, and we can make sure that you've got all of your information. So hopefully this was useful, and please contact me with any questions.